Hey Dave, the recording is in progress.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. So what's up, man? Are we gonna podcast today or what?
That's what I'm here for.
Right
I'm
on.
here to do whatever makes you happy.
Oh, be careful with that, my friend.
Whoa.
So this is your first time podcasting, so I'll be gentle.
Okay, appreciate that. Kid gloves.
So for everybody that's listening or watching, Dave and I are colleagues now. For the last, 8 months or so, we've worked together, which is super, super fun. Dave is a civil engineer, one of the most talented civil engineers, most well-known civil engineers in our market. So tell me about that, Dave. Tell me about getting in. Let's start from the very beginning, man. Like, why did you become a civil engineer? Or how did you become a civil engineer?
Before I answer that question, I'm not the most talented or most well-known guy. So
and the most humble.
I'm not any of those things. I'm average, but
average at best.
Let me tell you how I got into it, because I like that story. So when I was growing up, from the time I could remember, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. So I grew up as an Air Force kid. My dad was a career Air Force guy down the road here in Mountain Home. And so I grew up with jets flying over all the time. And I just, had this kind of romance about what would it be like, And by the time I got to the time I was applying for colleges, the Air Force Academy was on my radar. That was the only thing I wanted to do and put all my eggs in that basket. And turns out I didn't get in. So kind of a heartbreaking thing, but I had no backup plan. So that was kind of one of my first big life lessons, right? Is, don't always have just one plan or be able to adapt. And so when my dad and I think we were fishing, and he was like, well, so what are you going to do now that your academy plan is not going to work out? And I said, well, Dad, I think I want to be a music teacher. Because at the time I was really passionate about playing drums. I was playing a lot of drums. And he said, well, that's cool. It might be fun, but you might consider what your lifetime earning potential might be. And I think you got a lot of potential with math and science, and it'd be a shame if you didn't put it to good use. And I said, okay, well, maybe I want to be a game warden, because I was really into hunting and fishing. And my dad said, well, I think you're getting warmer, but there's very few of those guys in the state and gals. And you might have to do a job that you don't like for a long time before a spot like that would open up for you. So he's like, what else are you interested? And at the time, my dad was a first sergeant in the civil engineering squadron at Mountain Home Air Force Base. And I had no idea what that even meant. And so I was like, shit, I don't know, Dad, I'll be a civil engineer. And so that's what I declared. I declared as a civil engineer as a freshman going to U of I. And I'll be honest, I didn't really know what that meant. But on base, I knew that my dad's squadron was in charge of building the runways and the taxiways and things out the base and supporting the mission of the fighter jets. And so I was like, well, if I can't be a pilot, maybe there's a way to be involved. So anyways, I go off to school at U of I, and pretty quickly I start to understand what civil engineering is. And I started feeling this kind of passion for being a good steward of the environment around us. And what does that mean? It means the natural environment, and it means the built environment. And I think the civil engineering arena is the intersection of those things. And early in my career, as soon as I got out of college, in college civil engineering, there's a lot of branches. There's structural, there's environmental, there's transportation, there's water resources. There's a lot of kind of subdisciplines within civil, and I tended towards transportation, and ended up getting a master's degree with a focus on traffic. And when I graduated into the economy in 2009, that had almost no jobs.
Yeah, timing is everything.
Yeah, and in 2009, actually, my advisor, it wasn't my advisor, it was Dr. Michael Kite. He was my transportation professor. He said, hey, I'm looking for some grad students. If you didn't find a job, I could probably use you on this research project. And So I said yes, and that's how I ended up getting a master's degree. And so I graduated again in 2011, and the economy was slightly better, but still pretty flat. And I ended up selling Cutco knives for 6 or 8 weeks. And
Nice.
you know, looking back on it, I'm actually really grateful for the opportunity. At the front end of it, on my first day, I hated that I had to do it, but looking back on it, it taught me a lot of lessons. But anyways, every day that I was selling Cutco knives, I was looking at Monster.com and Indeed and Craigslist, and eventually I ended up seeing an ad on Craigslist that I applied to, and ended up being with a local firm called TO Engineers, and they wanted somebody to be on their aviation design team, and aviation, runways, taxiways, that kind of thing. And I was like, wow, what a great way for me to kind of quench my passion for aviation and flight, but use my skills as a civil engineer. So that's what kicked off my career, man. That's how I got into civil engineering.
That's killer. It's pretty rare for really anybody that I know to declare their major, in their first year of school. Man, I was kind of in my last year of school before I figured out what the hell I wanted to do.
Yeah, and I think for me, just speaking openly and honestly, I was a 18-year-old kid, and I was kind of lost and in a bit of an identity crisis, because I was like, I'm going to be an Air Force Academy kid, and then I wasn't.
Yeah.
so now
tell me about that. What happened with that? Like you apply, and it's obviously a pretty competitive thing, and like, did they tell you like why, or was it just you just weren't accepted?
I mean, it's complicated. So I started the application process towards the end of my sophomore year, and as you're doing the application process, there's a lot to it. There's paper application, and then you meet with like a liaison officer, and then they interview you, and then there's physical tests that you have to do, sprints, push-ups, sit-ups, all these endurance runs, things like that, and you have to score. They tell you what the threshold is, and so you're training to beat those thresholds. And then there's a medical exam. And when I was a sophomore, I ended up getting this tumor that was benign, but it was kind of a weird deal for a while with figuring out what it was. And they cut it out of me spring break my sophomore year, and then it came back a year later, and junior year they had to cut it out again, and that went into my medical record. So you send all this stuff to I can't remember exactly where you send it, but you send it to whoever's accepting the applications. It's all part of your package, and they review it, and they give you feedback on like, hey, you're missing this, or you need that, or whatever. And when I sent my medical in, they said, hey, based on your medical, we're going to disqualify you for service at the academy for scholarship. And I was like, well, that sucks. Why? This tumor or whatever is totally benign. It doesn't have any impact on my health. And they said, well, there's tens of thousands of kids that want to go here, and we're literally looking for reasons to disqualify people. And so we're taking like 2% of applicants will get in.
Crazy.
So the best of the best. And I felt like that was something that was way out of my control, and totally. It kind of put me into I don't know if depression's the right word, but I was like, man, I
don't think it's the wrong
word. I was so used to being able to control my own destiny, and just like if I work hard and was determined, I would get the outcome that I deserved, because I would make it so. And to a degree, I still believe that. But I learned a hard lesson that some things are just out of your control, and
absolutely,
and that's how it happened.
Crazy. Yeah, I mean that's an important lesson that we've all learned, that there's a lot of stuff out of our control, and the more we focus on and think about those things we can control, the harder it is to take care of business, advance our lives, advance our careers. And so really focusing in on what we can control is a hard lesson to learn for a lot of people, and for me it definitely has been too. But yeah, you can only control what you can control.
Yeah, and I look at my peers for guidance and inspiration a lot of times, and I'd been following you on social media for a long time, and I'd finally got the opportunity to reach out and get a meeting with you. And the first time you told me the story about how you started Stack Rock Group and all the different jobs that you had before that, you know, I had time to reflect on the decisions I made that were very deliberate, and how I thought that's the recipe for success, is to be deliberate and intentional and then follow your plan. And, you know, after hearing stories like yours of your success through the different ventures you've had, I'm like, there's a lot of recipes for success. And,
Sure.
you know, what is the secret sauce? Like, what is the one ingredient between people who are logical and linear, people who are more abstract and creative, but still tend to be on a path of growth and success and have a lot of self-confidence? What is the thing? And I don't know that I know that yet. What's your thought on that?
If you figure it out, let me know. But I mean, with all, you know, all that stuff you said or whatever, I mean, a big part of, you know, what's helped me, you know, get kind of to where I am or whatever is just getting really good at just rolling with what happens. Because you can have the best plan. I mean, like you can have the best plan, have all the best intentions, do all the right thing, and stuff's gonna blow up, and that's just how it goes. And you have to be able to, you know, quickly adapt, you know, figure it out, and also learn from what happened. But there's just not time in this life to sit around and, you know, like I said, be depressed about stuff and be bummed about stuff. You've got to just move on and just always keep moving forward.
Yeah, I like that.
And that's one thing definitely that, you know, so during the pandemic, for sure, like one thing that I definitely learned about myself was, and it's a thing that I already knew, because I mean, I've taken like the, you know, all the different personality tests, you know, the Myers-Briggs test 100 times in my life, and it comes out every single time 100% extrovert. Like, I need to be around people. Like, that's where I get my energy from. That's where I feel good. That's where I know, you know, I do my best work, is when I'm around other people. And during the pandemic, when I was sitting here at this desk by myself, like literally all day, every single day, I mean, my family was here obviously, but the depths of depression that I felt during that time, I didn't think it was possible. Like, it was so hard for me. And that's the thing, you know, it taught me a lot about myself for sure. And it definitely, you know, reaffirmed to me, you know, the importance of just rolling with stuff. As much as it sucked, you know, this is kind of out of my control, and this is how work is right now, and this is what we're going to do. And I had to just figure it out, and I did, and I got through it. You know, we all got through it, but it was tough for sure. It sucked.
So if you don't want to go down this road, just say, but can I pry into that just a little bit?
Sure.
So there's kind of a stigma around, you know, strong, successful males and depression and mental health, and not talking about it. And, you know, what ways did your depression manifest? How did you recognize it? And then what did you do to kind of overcome it? Like, how did you get back out there?
Yeah. So, I mean, a big way that that it became evident was, I mean, I was grumpy, and, you know, I didn't necessarily feel sad, but like with my wife and, you know, my kids, like I was a lot shorter than I usually am, which I don't like being like that. And I didn't realize it until, you know, Erica, my wife, pointed out, she's like, dude, you are seriously depressed. Like, you know, aren't acting like yourself. I can tell you're depressed. Like, you'll totally disassociate and just like scroll through social media for hours at a time and just doom scrolling on stuff. And I was like, shit, yeah, you're right. I am doing that. I'm totally doing that. And, you know, so that was, you know, kind of the first thing, you know, her telling me about it, and then just really thinking about physically how I felt. Like physically, and it happened so slowly because I was so used to that time too. You know, I've been part of the 5 a.m. gym club forever, and that went away. And I'm still struggling to get like that routine back. You know, 3 years later, I'm still struggling to get that back. And so, yeah, so physically, like, I felt bad. Like, I just felt like, you know, the you know, what's the saying? Like, I've got, you know, 1,000 pounds on my shoulders or whatever, like that. Like, physically, that's how I felt. I just felt bad. So yeah, so sort of recognizing it helped for sure. And during that time, I started doing like telehealth stuff, where I literally had an online like therapist that I was talking to about this stuff. And, you know, just like with a lot of things, you know, having somebody to talk to that's, you know, not your wife, not your, you know, your friends or whatever, you know, just having somebody to talk to that, you know, can kind of tell, you know, help you through it, give you some tools to, you know, to get better, to deal with that, you know, really helped a lot. And I still do that now. And, you know, and I'm a big, you know, proponent of, you know, mental health awareness, because, I mean, you know, as we all know, there's kind of a stigma around that. And, you know, if like you said, if we are being honest and, you know, really talking about stuff through doing that, I mean, I was diagnosed full on as manic depressive. And it turns out this is a thing that I've, you know, and talked with my therapist and everybody, like, this is a thing that I've literally had my whole life that I didn't know about. And, you know, talking about, you know, things that have happened in my past and how I dealt with it, like she was like, yeah, dude, you are full on, like, you, like, clinically, like, are officially diagnosed now. And so I take medication for that now, which helps a ton. Yeah, and it's, I mean, it's, you know, like I said, it's one of those things with weird stigma, and it's, you know, that part of it isn't something I talk about all the time, but it's a real thing.
Wow, thanks for sharing that, man.
Yeah, and you know,
and another thing that you said in there that I clung on to is, you know, I don't know that I give my wife enough credit for checking me when I'm not acting the way I need to act as a man around this house, and good for your wife for pointing that out in your house too. And
oh yeah, no, she's the first one to call me on my shit for sure.
Yeah, so you know, when they say behind all these great successful men, there's usually a successful woman too.
Oh, 100%,
you know, I think there's
100%, yeah.
There's a lot to be said for that, and we should, you know I got to get better at recognizing that and giving credit where credit's due.
Yeah, I try to do that all the time, and I know as much as I try, I don't do it as much as I should, because, you know, with Erica, my wife especially, like, I mean, she works too. She works full time. She, you know, does a whole lot, you know, more taking care of our kids than I do, just because they're kind of little. You know, a 12-year-old and a 4-year-old, the 4-year-old especially. I mean, she needs and wants mommy. And there's a lot of things and a lot of times that I can't do, and she won't let me do for her. And so, you know, it's not me, it's Erica for sure. And yeah, she works her face off.
Yeah. So I guess maybe for the benefit of the podcast, tell me about school for you, what it was like in high school, what your dreams and ambitions were, and then how did that morph between that time and the time you considered yourself a professional?
Yeah. I'm not sure if I consider myself a professional to this day.
Everybody else does.
Well, I'm glad somebody does. Yeah, so school for me, like I was never like a good student. Like I was never a straight A student. I never, you know, aspired to, you know, get the, you know, the highest grade in the class. But I did fine. You know, I was a B student forever. Math was always really hard for me. I mean, to this day, math is hard for me. Like basic math, you know, stuff I need to do for my, you know, my job, you know, when I own my own firm, like doing that stuff, you know, was fine. But like any sort of like, you know, whatever quasi advanced math is hard for me. And so, yeah, so, you know, engineering, whatever, none of that stuff was ever an option for me, just because of, you know, kind of my, and really I just developed a fear of math, honestly. Like I'm sure I could have figured it out, but I was kind of scared of it. Yeah, so I was never a super good student. And so until I was probably, and you might think this is crazy, but I was probably 25 years old before I even knew that being an engineer or an architect was even a thing that like a person could be. I didn't even know that. I grew up, so both my parents were career sales and marketing people in the food space. And that's what my dad's folks were entrepreneurs and always had their own biz. Same with my mom's folks. And so I never thought really of anything other than sales, marketing, and entrepreneurship is what I've just always thought about, because I kind of came by it naturally. That's what I always heard about. And so that's where a lot of my best, you know, lessons, you know, as a kid, and, you know, learning about stuff came from, was just listening to my parents talk about work and marketing, how they take care of clients, and, you know, marketing strategy and all this stuff. And so the whole, like this is crazy. When I think about this now, it kind of makes me a little bit grumpy. So when I was getting, you know, in high school, you know, getting ready to be done with high school, I literally never met with a guidance counselor. I knew some guidance counselors, you know, just being at school. Not a single one of them ever called me in their office and said, hey, let's talk about your career path. Let's get you to college. That was never a thing anyone ever said to me. I mean, I literally graduated from high school, and I remember like a weekend, like that next weekend, I was like, shit, what should I do? Like, do I get a job? Do I keep landscaping? Like, I guess Boise State University is right down the road here. It's where my mom went. And I mean, my mom graduated from Boise State when I was like 15, 16 years old. So she didn't go, right out of school. The first one in her family to go to college. And so that's just what I did. And I enrolled and went and had a ton of fun and learned a bunch of stuff and met tons of people, but not necessarily with a real, idea in my head of like what I wanted to be when I grew up. Just because I took a lot of marketing classes, a lot of classes around that, communication classes, learned, took a lot of communication classes, debate stuff. I love debate, did it, a fair amount of that. And then, I'd been in college for, 3.5 years. So like, shit, I should probably figure out a major so I can be done with this at some point. And so that at that point, I met with an advisor the first time I'd ever done that. Like they looked at my grades, my transcript, and all my stuff, or whatever. Like, all right, cool, we can get you out of here with a communications degree. Cool, let's do it. So I did, and that's how I ended up with a degree in human communication, and translated that to sales and marketing, and now transition to project management, being in our industry. And so as much as it seems like maybe what I've done in that arena has been really intentional, it sort of wasn't, man. Like it really was a lot of just kind of figuring it out as I went.
So if you could have a do-over, would you even do college?
No, I would not. Knowing what I know now, I honestly don't think I would. I would add, knowing what I know now. So when I was 15 years old, I started working for a landscape contractor here in Boise. My freshman year of high school, my biology teacher, who, come to find out, was like 6 years older than me. Like she was, she was like her first year teaching, and she was just, she was the dance teacher. So a bunch of the girls that I knew, just from being around stuff, were on the dance team, and so I just kind of ended up spending a little bit of time around her. And I remember one day in class, she was like, "Hey, dude, do you need a job?" I'm like, "Yeah, I should probably get a job." And she's like, "Do you know how to use a shovel?" I'm like, yeah, I'm a dude. I've dug some holes. I can probably do that. She's like, "Well, cool. My husband is a landscaper, and he needs to hire some guys. Like, will you, maybe go talk to him?" Like, all right. And, this is obviously before like cell phones and emails and stuff. So I was like, cool, come over to the house and, have you meet my husband and, see if you can go work for him. And so I did. And I worked from that dude, from the time I was 15 until I graduated from Boise State. So knowing what I know now, I would have stayed in that industry. I would have started my own landscape company, and with my marketing acumen, how I know how to sell, what I know about, the landscape industry and landscape construction, I have no doubt I would have built a massive company, and probably at this point sold it to, kind of like Cutting Edge Landscape here in town has done, sold it to, Brightview or some big, national, international, landscape company. And that's, knowing what I know now, that's 100% what I would have done.
Maybe that's what brings us together. We're just, kindred spirits. I did landscaping my last year of high school, my first year of college. I did, sprinkler systems and sod and shoveling permabark and doing everything, planting trees.
I'm known as the sprinkler tech in my neighborhood. When any of my neighbors need sprinkler help, they come to me. And dudes that I don't, people in my neighborhood that I don't even know will come knock on my door like, "Hey, Todd said stuff about sprinklers. Do you think you can look at my stuff?" All right, man. And sometimes I'll help them fix it. Sometimes I'll be like, "No, this is what you need to do," and just send them on their way. And they're like, "Oh, cool, I didn't realize that." And go to Home Depot or go to Lowe's, whatever, buy some new valves or whatever, and dig this thing up, and away you go.
Let me make a plug for Grover Paint Pack. They're my favorite. They're my favorite in the valley. Grover is super funny. Just the way they do stuff is so good. I love it. Their commercials just make me feel like 1950, which is
and I always wonder, are those the same ones that they've used since the 50s? Like, it sort of seems like they are.
Could be. They got this real Leave It to Beaver kind of vibe, and I don't know. I kind of dig it.
Yeah, they're in color, so they might not be quite that old, but
sure.
Yeah, but that's kind of been my path. And so, out of school, my first real job was I was a sales rep for a power tool manufacturer, and I sold power tools to the Home Depot. And they gave me a company truck and said, "Hey, here are your accounts." So I had a whole bunch of Home Depot stores in Utah, Idaho, and Alaska. And I was on the road and just drove around selling tools to the Home Depot, building displays, for pressure washers and, tools and stuff. And, I did that for a number of years. I did that.
And that was before Tate's.
Yeah, that was before Tate's. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and that the way that job ended was one of the weirdest, most surreal experiences I've ever had. So the company I worked for ended up getting purchased by a massive international conglomerate called Black & Decker, who owns tons and tons of different companies. And so Black & Decker bought the company that I worked for, and they then flew all the sales reps for the entire United States to Phoenix at the same time, put us in a conference room, and laid us off with PowerPoint. Literally, like, we all sat there. Nobody knew what was going to happen when we got there. Laid us off via PowerPoint. Here's, if you've been here here's a matrix for how long you've been here, which equals, your severance package. Here's where to take your trucks. Here's where to send your tools. Leave your credit cards with Debbie on the way out. And it's been real. There were dudes in that room that worked for this company for 35, 40 years. They were in tears because they had no idea what the hell they were going to do, because they were like, dude, this is the only job I've ever had. I'm 55 years old. Who's going to hire me? I'm not ready to retire. It was the most crazy, surreal thing I've ever seen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was bananas.
Breaking up with someone over text.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And there were a few of us that, and I probably shouldn't, they'll probably come after me if I tell the story, but there were a few of us that ended up keeping our company credit cards, didn't turn them into Debbie on the way out, and went back to the airport and bought cocktails for the entire airport, for everybody. People walking by the bar, hey, come in and have a cocktail with you look fun, come hang out. And we did that for hours until our flight. It was pretty fun.
Wow, they didn't shut her down, huh?
No, they did not. They should have.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was my first, real eye-opening work experience. Hey man, this is real. Like, this is real life stuff. It was crazy.
Man, that is crazy.
Yeah, there's still, there's still a couple cats that I worked with back in the day at that company that I still talk to. Because we had kind of our, like a lot of big companies set up, we had our, we all had our territories, and then, there were a bunch of people that reported up to, one person who was in charge of, sales for that area, that district, or whatever they called it. And there's a dude in Denver that I still talk to quite a bit. A dude that was in Seattle that's now back in Nebraska or wherever he lives, and we still, exchange a LinkedIn message now and again. And that was a crazy time. Yeah, and so after that, that's when I ended up going to work for Tate, because I had, knowledge of tools and sales. Went to work there, ended up becoming sales manager. And that was one of the things where, I always had in my head, entrepreneurship and, working for the man was never, necessarily my path. And so I remember one morning getting ready for work, kind of looking at myself in the mirror and knowing that because my last name wasn't Tate, the sales manager role that I had topped out. Like, I would never be an owner of that company. I would never, there was nowhere for me to go. And that scared me a lot, because I was, not even 30 years old, 27 or whatever, however old I was when that happened. And so I was having happy hour with one of my clients. And he was like, yeah, dude, come to work for me. And so I did. That was my, kind of my foray back into construction. He owned a HVAC refrigeration company, and so ended up going to work for him and landed him a whole bunch, landed that company a whole bunch of projects. And again, got laid off. This was like 2008, when the economy was starting to do bad, and I had just landed some massive design build projects for these guys, and got laid off literally because, well, we don't need marketing anymore because we have all this work. So thanks, man. It's been real.
Short-sighted.
Yep. Yeah, but everything works out the way it should. Yeah, so did that for a while. Worked for another contractor for a couple, year and a half, 2 years. Got tired of that, and that's when I ended up starting Stackyard Group, started my own firm. Did that for a little over 10 years, right about 10 years. Left that, did the commercial real estate hustle for a while. My buddy Dave and WSP came to me and made me an offer I couldn't refuse. So here I am.
You mind if I tell that story? I love that story.
No, of course.
Oh man, so I gotta take it back and throw my father-in-law into it. So my father-in-law introduced me to that restaurant, the Stagecoach. I'd never been. I'd driven by
the
Garden City
institution.
so many times,
Mhm.
and I was like, man, this section of town is kind of a dive. Like, it's kind of Skid Row right here. And
A little gritty.
yeah, I'd never consider stopping there to eat, and went there with my family and my father-in-law, of course. And it was like, man, back in my day selling potatoes for Lamb Weston, he's like, you wouldn't believe the deals that have been signed here. And all the Idaho businesses, you know, for a long time, this was the steakhouse in Boise. And
Absolutely.
And this is where the drinks got poured and the ink got, you know, on paper. And
a lot of handshake deals were done.
Oh yeah. He's like, and if they weren't done on the golf course, they were done right here.
100%.
Or they were scoped on the golf course and they were finalized right here, or whatever. And you know, he told me that story. So fast forward to, I guess, 2022. I got this WSP role as a transportation business lead for Idaho in November of 21. And you know, I was like, man, I've got to shore up the leadership of this team, and I got to do it quick. And who do I know? And I realized pretty fast I didn't know very many people. But then I thought, well, who do I know that knows people? And dude, you were the first guy. When I think network, I'm like, Krisjan has a network. And so I think I called you in December. So I'd been at the job for a month, and you were like, dude, I'm pretty busy. I got all these deals going on, and you know, the commercial real estate game's on fire right now. And he's like, give me through the turn of the year and we'll catch up. And I think it was all the way to February when we finally, I said, where do you want to meet? And you said, well, my office is downtown. And my daily driver was a 3/4 ton diesel truck, which I hate driving downtown. Now I've got a little commuter car, which is a little nicer, but I was like, dude, I don't want to park my pickup in a parking garage. Like, can we meet? Like, what do you think of the Stagecoach? You're like, I love the Stagecoach.
That's my spot. Yeah.
And so we get down there and we have a couple of bar prawns and pour a couple Pendletons and start just talking and catching up and talking about family and how things are going and the new role and your new role, because you were still relatively new in your commercial real estate role. And we get to talking more, and I'm like, all right, well, the reason why I called you down here is I got to shore up some leadership around my office if I'm going to succeed, and I got to do it fast. Who do you know that's not happy? And I don't know if that's the words I use, but who do you know that might be interested in a change of scenery in a company with a lot of resources and a great reputation, new to this market? And you're like, I don't know, what kind of skills are you looking for? And so I start telling you, well, it's got to be somebody who can work a room, somebody who also has a network, somebody who can sell, work, and recruit simultaneously. You know, somebody I could get along with. And I'll never forget we were both drinking Pendleton rye, I think, on ice, and you were just finishing your drink and you set it down, and it was like a scene from a movie. You just looked sideways at me and you're like, you're talking about me, Dave.
Yep. I remember that. Yeah.
I was like, oh man, I didn't know you were available or on the market. And I'll never forget, this harkens back to my Cutco days, where one of the first things they teach you in Cutco sales training is don't make any assumptions about your customers. Don't walk in and think these people can't afford our $1,000 knife set. Just ask them and let them tell you they can't afford it, or let them tell you they don't want it. But don't assume.
Sure.
Don't sell them what you think they want. Ask them, tell them what you have, and ask them what they want. And so in this scenario, I'd made an assumption that you were happy and would never be interested in coming to work for a big firm with all this reach and resource, that you liked being kind of your own boss. And I made an assumption that was wrong, and I'm glad that you corrected me, because I think it's been awesome so far.
Yeah, no, I know, and I'm super happy. And yeah, I mean to that point, yeah, I mean, yeah, you can't make those assumptions. And you know, as much as I, you know, as much as I liked, you know, doing the commercial real estate thing, you know, I was good at it. I had a ton, you know, doing a ton of deals. It was lonely, because I mean, when you're out there doing that, I mean, you're pretty much on your own, and it was lonely for me. And the nature of that business, I mean, by nature, that business is very transactional. I mean, because that's how you get paid, is by closing deals, doing transactions. And then once that transaction is closed, you move on. And that part of it, I did not like at all, because I've always, thrived on relationships, thrived on, being in projects, working with my friends on this project and turning that into another one and another one. And that part of it, I did not like. And that was a big selling point to me, was, having the team and being back in projects. Like, that's what I like doing. And so, yeah, so it's a really, really good fit for me.
Well, good. I'm glad you're liking it.
That's awesome.
And, I'm still trying to figure out what this role is and how to do it as good as I can. I came from a role where I was learning project management. I'd been in project management for a few years. I was learning leadership. I had a few direct reports, and I was used to reporting to somebody else fairly often. And kind of overnight, I found myself in a role with a ton of autonomy and a ton of responsibility, but also a ton of support and resources, which I didn't expect. But that part's been really good, and I'm still learning how to use what's at my disposal efficiently, the best I can.
Well, and I think of that, like, the fact that you're thinking about those things, the fact that, you want to get better, know you need to get better. The fact that you're thinking about that means you're doing a really good job. It's like being a parent, the parent that doesn't give a shit about their kids and, like, whatever, they're fine. The parent that is always like, I hope I'm doing a good job. I want to do a better job. Like, that's a good parent. If you didn't care, like, you wouldn't be a good parent. And that was what makes you good at what you do, because you do care and you want to get better.
Yeah. And I wish I could articulate what better looks like from here.
Right.
That's all I can articulate to you is what I'm struggling with.
100%.
I can identify the things that are front of mind. And another challenge is not letting that bog me down too much, because I've always been very future forward, future looking. And our projects are now. Our projects are in the moment. Yep. In the role that we have as business leaders, we're responsible for putting food on the table for everybody else to eat. And so that you can't only look at what's right in front of you. You've got to be looking down the road, and it's really hard to balance that project delivery in the here and now, but also building that pipeline at the same time. That's a huge challenge.
Yeah, being both, strategic and tactical at the same time is hard. And that's why, that's why we're in this position, because we can do that. And just like you, man, I mean, I want to get better. I read stuff. I'm part of a leadership training group with a couple of different folks from across the country, totally different industries, totally different, roles in their companies. But, the struggles are the same. And so we've got this program where, there's a bunch of stuff that we read every week, kind of assigned reading stuff. And then the dude that leads this group does a couple of videos throughout the week. And so we, and all about leadership and, getting better and setting your standard and, are you living up to your standard? And that's kind of what this group is, we get together, via teams just like this. And every week talk about that. Like, am I living my standard? Like, where am I falling down? Where do I need help? And it's sort of just a sounding board of some, peers from across the country that, we can share these struggles and help each other and keep each other accountable. And I know, because I'm doing that, I'm getting better. I've got a long way to go for sure. And with that kind of stuff, like, there's no, like, you'll never be like, all right, I'm done. I made it. I'm at the top now. I can stop doing this. I guess that's retirement or death or whatever. But as long as you're, working towards that, like, you're doing the right things.
Yeah, that's funny that I like that point that you just made about, like, when do you know if you've arrived, or can you ever arrive? And I remember having that feeling, feeling pretty beat up and down when I graduated my bachelor's, and I think I had 40 something applications across the country, and I had 2 callbacks and an interview or 2, and none of it panned out. And I remember feeling pretty down until Dr. Kite, offered me that fellowship to be on his research program and get another degree and have it paid for. And I felt proud that I was offered that, but I also felt lucky that, hey, I'm not going to have to, beg for soup. I can I could do something for the next little while and get something out of it. It's not a waste of time.
Yeah. I mean, what's the saying? I'd rather be lucky than good, you know? It's all, it's all timing, and you had the right, had you not had the relationship with that professor, that wouldn't have happened. And and I'm a huge proponent of, like I said, why I was, happy, not happy, but I felt good about leaving commercial real estate because it wasn't for me, and I wasn't able to really build the types of relationships that I wanted to in doing that, because like I said, it's so transactional by nature. So the fact that you had that relationship, like you have those, you build those relationships, you have the right relationships, good things happen, and the world is round. I mean, the philosophy is give more than you take, and and I try to live that way every day.
And I remember graduating with a master's degree and having that sense of accomplishment, and maybe a sense of entitlement came with that I didn't expect, and I didn't recognize it until later. But I remember landing at my first job thinking, like, people are going to start treating me with some respect and some cachet, you know, and
kiss the ring, man.
And that's not how it went.
That's not how it ever goes.
And I don't know how long it took me, but eventually I figured out that, I got a lot to prove still, and you have to work hard every day. Like stuff won't just happen for you due to title or whatever level of achievement you think you've accomplished. Stuff still never lands for you. You have to work every day.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think about that sometimes too. Like what will it be, what would it be like to have work just come pouring in because, just because I'm here or because we're here or whatever. Like, that's just not how it works. If you don't have the right relationships, if you're not, taking care of your clients, you're not, actively trying to help them, showing them value, doing all the right things, and for us, a lot of times, it's making our clients look good to their clients. And the more that the more that we can do that, like, the more work there's going to be. And that's kind of where that comes from.
Making our clients look good to their clients. I like how that sounds. Give me an example of that.
So a lot of times for us on our side of our business, our clients are architects. And so we're working for the architect. They're our client, but the architect has a client. And that client, might be a healthcare system. It might be, commercial developer, something like that. And if we can do a really good job holding the schedule, solving the problems, before the owner ever knows it's a problem, not being late on stuff, not having them ever giving them a reason to blame, this consultant we have isn't getting our stuff, or they're not doing it right, or whatever. The more we can, mitigate all that stuff and do everything we can to make that architect look really good to his or her client, they're going to want to hire us again. And I was thinking about this too, and I think for you too, we were kind of texting about this the other night, say whatever transportation department you guys are working for, that project manager, they report to somebody. And if you can help make that project manager within, the transportation department look, be able to look really good to his or her manager, they're going to want to work with you again.
Yeah. Okay.
And depending on, the idea is to get to, and I have a lot of clients like this where I can say that, hey, to the owner we're all working for, what is important to them? How can and literally ask the question, how can I help make you look really good to them? Yeah,
just out with it.
Yeah.
How do I make you look good on this?
That's how you feel. What's important on this thing? What's going to make you look good? What are some of the obstacles you see coming in this thing internally that I can help you navigate and mitigate, so that you have nothing but good things to tell your boss, your manager, whatever, about what's about this project. And that's the thing that that I've learned. A lot of people, folks in our industry, are not going to ask that question.
Yeah. I don't know that I've heard it asked that way. I've been the person in those meetings that's asking the question of, what do you foresee as a challenge for your agency on this, or what's your highest priority? Is it schedule? Is it budget? Is it public safety? Is it what are your? And
it's always all those things. It's all those things like that. Those are always an issue.
And then I think, they're always an issue. But then the other layers I always think about are like, what are the external drivers of the project? Why? Mm-hmm. Why are we doing it? sometimes it's like, what's the political climate right now? Is there going to be political support or public support for this?
Or a bunch of pushback.
Yeah, who are going to be the project antagonists, and what should we be prepared for?
Yeah. And I think when you're asking those folks those questions, I mean, ask them how you can help them. I mean, them personally, like, how can I help make sure this goes really good for you personally?
See, and that's not that far of a leap from when we think of our client as the transportation department or the city of. It's not that much farther of a leap to make that personal connection with the project manager from the owner side of, like, how do I make you look good? Yeah. What are you? Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because I mean, everybody within that larger city transportation part, whatever, it's all done by people, and those people all report up to somebody else, and they're just like us, man. They're trying to do a good job and get through their day and make sure their manager and their leadership's happy. Yeah. So if we can help them do that, man, they're going to want to work with us.
Oh yeah.
And have them, and I think as important it is to obviously be doing those things, for them to know that we are doing those things, that obviously, it goes without saying that, yes, we have the project's best interest at heart. We have, the public safety, the project parameters, all that stuff. We understand that we have all that stuff, your best interest in that. But what is, for you personally, like, do you need to just knock this one out of the park because you're trying to get a promotion? You get bonused, or you get some, whatever, however that works. What is really driving this thing for you? Like, how can I help you get to that next level?
Yeah, it's a good lesson.
Yeah, and I would wager that some of those project managers at whatever transportation department, I have a hard time believing that anybody's ever asked them that before. I doubt they have.
I'm going to find out.
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously. Yeah. Next time you guys you're signing up for a project with, somebody that you know well or don't even know that well. I mean, I think that would be a really good question to ask. Okay.
Let me change gears a little bit.
Do it.
You've been the BOMA guy in Idaho for a long time. As you have opportunities to recruit and nurture and mentor the careers of others coming up through the industry, what advice are you giving them about joining an industry group, and not just joining it, but being active in a way that I know not everybody's going to be the Krisjan Hiner of BOMA, but what do you recommend on, like, how do you find a passion to pursue in an industry group or in a networking group, even if it's not related to your industry?
Sure.
What's important?
Yeah. So and I have this conversation with people a lot, like I said, when I'm recruiting people into BOMA, or, talking about BOMA, and I've, been lucky enough that I've been to a lot of different BOMA meetings where, with, international meetings where there's, 10,000, building owners, managers, people in the industry in one city at one time. I've been invited to go to, other BOMA, BOMA local associations like BOMA Idaho and other places, and talk to them about it. About how to recruit and kind of why it's important to be here, and I always kind of say the same thing is, and for me, BOMA's always been the right place, but there's a lot of different industry groups or whatever. So I would suggest to someone, find an organization that you like, that you feel good about, that is pretty closely industry related. I mean, if you want to do hospital board or whatever, that's same thing, but go find an organization where your clients are. I'm obviously a huge proponent of industry groups that advocate for the profession, for this thing that you do, like the civil engineering organization. Like, that's an important thing to do, but your clients aren't there. Like, very few other civil engineering firms are going to hire you to do stuff. So I would say find an organization that you can go to where your clients are. Get super involved, go to everything, put it every single meeting, every single coffee hour, happy hour, networking thing, golf tournament, whatever, put them all in your calendar, go to every single one of them. And even if the program, whatever, doesn't seem interesting, that's not necessarily why you're there. That being said, you'll probably learn something, but you're there to meet people and meet potential clients, and just meet people within the industry that you can network with, become friends with and do business with. And from doing that, and very, very few people join organizations and go to everything. So join an organization where your clients are, get involved, get on a committee, an events committee, or the education committee, or whatever, within that, larger organization. What's the thing that you're passionate about? If you're passionate about event planning, get on the event, the party planning committee or whatever, and you'll meet people, work really closely with other folks, and you'll develop those relationships. And through developing those relationships, good things will happen. The business will get pushed around. You'll be able to refer work to other folks, and by doing that, work will, come your way as well.
So one thing we talk a lot about is how everybody in the organization has a role in business development, but not everybody's role is the same. How do you see that?
You even like specifically like people that come to BOMA, like a lot of those people are business development folks.
Yeah, but I mean, let's think about our office, right?
Yeah.
So we have an engineering office with multiple engineering disciplines. We have some non-technical staff. How do you see the roles of all those people being significant in business development, but not always in direct sales?
Yeah. So the roles of those folks, in my opinion, is so they're in projects, especially if they're a technical person, they're in projects, and they are, very likely interfacing with not only, the project team in the office, but likely with people outside of the office, the client. They'll be, kind of client facing a lot of the time, and develop a relationship with that client. And in my opinion, as a project manager, someone who's working with the client, your job is to turn this project we're working on right now into the next one, or at least get some really good information. Because like on the public sector, a lot of times they can't just hire you because they like you, but they have, information on what's coming, on, hey, we just hired this other person who I know is gonna be on these other projects. Like, you should probably know them. Cool. Will you introduce me? Yup. And just it's just asking questions. Just ask some questions about, what else is coming, who else is in the office, who else should I know, and just kind of having the gall to just ask them those questions and just say, hey, yeah, I heard that you guys just hired this other person from this other firm, this other agency. They're coming over. I don't know them. I'd like to. Will you introduce me? And 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, oh yeah, cool. I'll shoot an email or come to our office and I'll, walk you down the hall or whatever.
Okay. So the other day we were talking back and forth, and you have a quote about who people want to do business with.
Yep. Yeah, and this is a quote that I did not coin this phrase. I'm not sure who did. I've seen it in a number of different sales marketing kind of books and blogs and stuff. But the quote is, all things being equal, people want to do business with their friends. All things not being equal, people still want to do business with their friends. And so because you have a relationship, because they can trust you, because you're going to do a good job, they know they can rely on you, even if, the price or whatever isn't the same, they'll still want to do business with you. Because they know you're going to take care of them, all the things I just said, because they know those things, 9 times out of 10, they will pay more to work with you because they know you and like you and your friends, and they know you're going to do a good job for them.
I think there's another element to that too. It's projects rarely go smooth for the entire duration.
100%.
But if you're going to have a challenge, and it's going to be a significant challenge with a huge schedule impact or cost impact, wouldn't you rather go to the Stagecoach and buy your client a whiskey and have a heart-to-heart discussion about
100%
what's coming up, rather than, man, I don't know how this guy or this gal is going to react. I'm a little scared to tell them the truth right away. Maybe I give it another week and see if it outlook it's a little better, and then break it to them. You start trying to rationalize things when you don't have a great relationship, right? You start trying to, well, what if I don't know. That's what I've seen. But when they're your friend, you text or you
text them, call them. Yeah, you meet at the Stagecoach and just like, hey man, here's what we're looking at. Nothing that I thought was going to happen. Nothing any of us thought was going to happen. I'm not entirely sure how we're going to deal with this thing or figure it out, but I know we will. Give me a little bit of time or whatever, and know that I'm working on this thing for you. Like, know that I've got this thing handled. It might not seem like it right now, but we're gonna get this figured out. And more often than not, they're like, all right, cool.
Yeah. And that even when you have that conversation and it's unclear what the next steps are, but you know you've got to do something and you've got to rally to overcome a new obstacle, just having the conversation and making people aware as soon as it's a problem is so much better than
100%.
It never works itself out.
Oh no,
it never does.
No, it'll only get worse. It'll never get better. It'll get
Somebody
done.
else.
The project will end, but it won't ever be good. So one thing that I like to do when I'm working with a new client or whatever, and a lot of times, depending on who we're working for, I will, if it's an architecture firm, I'll likely know the owner of the firm, and they'll be the ones that will sign us up on a project, and then they'll typically kick it to a what's up, kitty? They will kick it to a one of their project managers or their architects or whatever, and a lot of times that's somebody that I don't know, and as soon as that project's signed up, that's the first thing I will do is get in my car and go to their office and meet that person. Because not a lot of folks do that, and in our day and age with email and everything, it's really, really easy to just do business via email, and that's, you're not going to develop a relationship with anybody that way. So 100%, the first time you work with somebody you don't know, go to their office, go take them to beers, take them to lunch, meet them for coffee, whatever, and just start really developing that real relationship.
That's right.
Do you guys, on your side of things, is that kind of how that goes for you guys too, where you'll get signed up on a project and not necessarily know the whole project team?
It happens all the time. We usually on public works projects, we typically have a single point of contact for all things technical, but then sometimes it's a different point of contact if there's something that's, I don't know, specialized or niche within the project. And I always like to ask for clarification on the communication with that PM, with that person that I do have the close relationship with. Are you okay for expeditious reasons if I reach out directly to the person that's controlling the environmental portion, and I'll CC you, or
totally,
or do you want that communication to flow through you? And I think it's super important to get those things clarified. I don't think you should assume
no,
hey, it's just faster if I do it this way, or
totally. Yeah.
It's their problem to deal with. Let me just
it's seemingly more efficient to just stay in the office and not waste that time to go to their office or whatever, and just do it via email, the occasional phone call. But until you have that real face-to-face, be able to shake somebody's hand like that, you're not really developing a relationship that way.
What are your thoughts on what did I see an article yesterday? There's 5 generations in the workplace now.
That's crazy. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the challenges that come with that?
Well, we all know. There's so many. We all know that there's so many boomers that are exiting the workplace, and now there's Gen Z or whatever that's kind of entering the workplace, and then us, Gen X, millennials, and we all kind of communicate and do things differently, and it's I'm a huge fan of knowing your audience. One thing that I say to you wouldn't resonate or land the same way with somebody that was maybe my parents' age. So you've got to just be rhetorically sensitive on who you're dealing with and who you're talking to, and show up accordingly.
Yeah, and how I've got some teammates in the office that prefer that urgent news is delivered via text.
Yeah,
and I've got some other teammates that when I text them, they're like, "Will you call me?"
or "Why are you texting me this, bro? Call me."
Yeah. And some, if it's urgent, don't mind if it's at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. But if there's some, and I don't know if it's a generational thing, maybe it is, but
I think some probably is, but some of it's personality stuff too.
If it's that late, they're like, "I'll respond in the morning." Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or they just won't respond, and you'll hear from them in the morning.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. It's just knowing your audience, man. Yeah, sales, marketing stuff, project management, with dealing with people, it's all kind of the same thing, man. You just gotta know who you're talking to, and do your research, and just do your best to understand and be empathetic, and just at the end of the day, just treating people well and being nice and cool, like, it solves a whole lot of problems. I say that to my 12-year-old son all the time. Dude, just be cool. Just be cool. It'll solve. Just be cool.
Whatever that means.
Yeah. figure it out, man. Just be cool. You know, you can't. It's one of those things you can't define it, but you know what it means. Just be cool.
Yeah, my dad's version of that was don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't sweat the small stuff and just be nice. Just be nice. No matter how messed up a project is, how messed up stuff is, whatever, just being nice, like, you know, solves a lot of problems. I mean, just like when you call, you know, the helpline for, you know, your credit card got charged with when you didn't buy or whatever. Like, you can call and freak out on the credit card lady. You know, like, that's not going to help. You know, the nicer you are, the more apt this person is to want to help you and to actually do a good job helping you. So yeah, it's just about being nice.
Yeah, and you know, my uncle had a system for determining the urgency or severity of an issue by asking, like, is this going to matter in 10 minutes, or is this going to matter tomorrow? Is this going to matter in a year? Is this going to matter in 5 years? And depending on the answer, you know, wherever your problem lies in there is, should you even worry about it?
Totally. I read a quote a lot like that once. It was, if your problem can be solved with $10,000, you don't have a problem.
Yeah. That's funny.
Well, cool, man. I should probably I'm kind of up against it. I've got family coming home, so I want to go.
All right, man.
I'm gonna go play with the little girl.
Yeah, good meeting, and I appreciate the opportunity. And
absolutely, man.
Take care of the family, man.
We'll do this again soon.
All right, later.